You get plenty of coverage of Oklahoma State football. You think you hear all the noise coming from Gallagher-Iba Arena when you get your Cowboy basketball news. But you don't.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
And there's a couple of Jordans here to fix just that. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast.
This could be a podcast. Anyone with a computer can make one.
Here are your hosts, Jordan Keene and Jordan Bishop.
Welcome into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Jordan King and Jordan Bishop with you. And Jordan, this is episode 19. Coming up in this episode, we're going to have Colin Carmichael on. So that was a good interview. Happy to have him on finally. Talk a little soccer, talk a little Rangers FC, their rivalry with Celtic, how the Scottish Premier League is like the English Premier League, and how it's not, because it's financially not even close to being the same thing. So that interview coming up, I thought it was a good one, and happy to be talking some soccer here in the spring. We don't talk a ton of cross-country or track or anything like that, but I thought this was worth mentioning. Sinclaire Johnson, she is a junior from, let me get this city right here, Longwood, Florida. And the junior, she raced her best race since last year's regional, and that was out at Stanford. She posted a time of 4 minutes, 13 seconds, and 35 hundredths of a second out in 1,500 meters. So that's a long way to run in 4 minutes. I'll just tell you that much. something I couldn't do.
Alyssa White broke the school record in women's pole vault. She jumped 3.85 meters. So I mean that's breaking records, that bodes well for postseason coming up.
Yeah, the 9th record broken in 2019, according to the release here. But the thing that I wanted to highlight on Sinclaire Johnson's performance, she's now the number one individual at this event in the NCAA. So she's going to go to the West Regional, and she's put herself in a terrific a terrific position here to be a player in the national tournament.
Yeah, and that's has done well at with these groups is postseason, obviously. So we'll see where are they at this year. Do you know where nationals are going to be at? Usually they're in Oregon. I would assume they're going to be in Oregon probably again because that's where Nike's at.
I will type with one hand the fastest that I can the NCAA track and field regionals. But as we search this, I think it's pretty impressive. You're talking about someone in Sinclaire Johnson who is showing up, like her top 2 times in her event were to go to regionals and at regionals. Like that's pretty impressive to be able to do that. So I know, let's see here, see if we can't get the internet to work for us. So we looked it up, beautiful part of podcasts. Well, you don't even know what we were doing there. We looked it up, and it is down where?
Austin, Texas.
Great. Got to go down and deal with them flipping Longhorns again. I tell you what, man.
Yeah. But, yeah, Austin next year and back to Eugene. So
there you go. So that's where you would expect her after this performance. You would assume she will probably be racing there because she's got to go do the West Regional, but pretty good. So, Sinclaire Johnson, congratulations to her. She's now the number 1 racer in the 1,500. So I figured, you know what, I was looking up and down the women's sports thing, and I was like, let's see, we got tennis, we got softball, we hit on soccer, golf, equestrian's all done. It's like cross country, we really don't talk about that enough, and I did see that was a headline. All right, so moving on, we'll play the Colin Carmichael interview right now. We went over there to the Cowgirl soccer offices and checked out Colin Carmichael's office. Got to sit in there, talk to him for a little bit, and again, talked about a myriad of things, including what he was trying to get done this spring. Anything they should listen for specifically?
Yeah, I mean, you guys obviously went into a lot of his personal fandom, and I got to learn a bit about how the over there the EPL and all that works, and the Scottish Premier League and all that. But what I thought was really interesting was near the end, he talked about how women's soccer has really grown, not just collegiate but pro levels, and how people need to learn that not to compare the two, men's and women's, just to see women's soccer for how it is and how good it's getting, how great it's getting in terms of talent pool in the U.S. and just overall across the world. So I thought that was really interesting to listen to.
I think he has done the best job of verbalizing. And by the way, everyone that's we've had on the show has done a great job talking about the growth of women's sports. I thought he did among the best job. I'll say among, that way it's not definitive. I think he's done among the best job of anyone in verbalizing the goal, what the goal should be for professional women's sports, and that is not to be better than the men's sports. It's to be the best women's sports that they can be, right? Yeah. And I think he did a really good job of verbalizing that. So that's at the end of the interview. Listen in for that. I thought it was a really good answer to our question that we've asked just about everyone that we've had on the show so far. So we will finish up the podcast on the other side. Here is Jordan and Jordan at the Cowgirl soccer offices with Coach Colin Carmichael. Welcome back into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Jordan and Jordan with you as usual, and now over here at the athletic offices with Cowgirl soccer coach Colin Carmichael. Coach, thanks for taking out a few minutes and joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure.
Absolutely. And started off, the question I kind of wanted to know, two-part question. What were some of the goals going into spring? And then did you feel you accomplished them? Obviously going undefeated, but maybe the record isn't the biggest thing that you want to get out of spring.
Yeah, for sure. I think every coach has some things they want to get accomplished in the spring, but after the way the fall ended for this group, we definitely wanted to win some games and get a little bit more confidence, lack of a better word, get our swagger back a little bit, and we did that. But yeah, within that, we wanted to improve our ball retention. We felt like last year when teams pressurized us, we went a little bit too direct and we didn't keep the ball enough. And so we spent a lot of time working on that, and to the team's great credit, we improved. Hopefully that'll transfer over to the fall, and you'll see a team that's able to build a little bit better and keep the ball whenever the other team presses. And with our goalkeepers, we wanted to incorporate them using their feet a little bit more. That helps us to keep the ball, so being more comfortable going back to their feet and passing out from the back as opposed to just going longer. So those were some things. And then we wanted to be able to get within our system, be able to get more players into the attacking area, which in theory should generate more opportunities to score. So those were things we worked on, and I felt as the spring went along, we improved. This group of players, they really buy into what we're doing. They're very motivated. They set a high standard for themselves, and they worked on, to their great credit, they tried to incorporate what we were doing into the games, and I was really pleased with it.
Now, you're obviously losing a lot of talent, a lot of experience, talking about like Haley Woodard and some goal scoring up front, but you're returning some as well. Gracie Oakham had a really good spring. Kim Rodriguez kind of does it all for you. Just talk about some of the players that are coming back to replace what I think some people might be, if you just kind of surface level paying attention to this program, Haley Woodard is a big name that you lose.
Yep.
So talk about some of the players that are coming back. I mean, it's not end of all things good at this program.
No, for sure. So last year, those that follow the program would know, started the season really well. We're ranked number 12 in the country, I believe, at one point, and I think we were 10-1-1. And then we had some injuries, but we lost Haley and Marlowe, and those were our 1-2 scoring punch, and they were both seniors. So, you kind of got a little glimpse of the things we'll have to do better when those kids are gone. And it wasn't just those two. We lost quite a few kids, and probably was a big factor in why the season did not end the way we would have liked it to. So those kids are gone, and now you look to the future and you say, okay, what can we do to be better? We actually return, I want to say 10, 11 kids who started a lot of games for us. But the key is we're missing those two pieces up front. We got a transfer in, Gabriella from Mississippi State, call her G. She had a really nice spring for us, considering she had never played with these players or had these coaches or played in our system. So we expect G to contribute at a high level up front for us. We have two freshmen coming in, Peyton Vinci and Olivia Dow, who are both attacking kids who hopefully can help there. But the returning players also know they have to take responsibility. Gracie Oakham stepped it up in the spring, scored some good goals for us. Julia Lenhart is another player who can score. JC Jones needs to be better in the offensive end. So we got Charmaine Morgan back from that wide position, and she creates a lot of opportunities for us. So we feel like we're going to be a really solid team next year. The big question is who's going to score those goals, and if we can put that piece in the puzzle, we're really excited. We think this team has a chance to be very good.
You had the injury bug attack you last year, like you mentioned. So how big is the spring season to get everybody kind of back on the horse and just getting everybody back to full 100% to get them going again?
Yeah, it's important. I think injuries are part and parcel of soccer, athletics. It happens. But last year I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I've never seen anything like it. Before the season started, we lost Charmaine Morgan and Kumbaso. Then we lost Anna Lawler, starting freshman, first game of the season against OU. On the heels of that, we then lost Marlowe. Then we lost Taylor Olsen. Then we lost Haley. Then we lost Webby. And the list goes on. Cammie, Danny. And it was just too much for us to withstand, to be honest with you. And the kids who played very well. We were in every game, and we were able to compete. We just didn't have quite enough to get the job done that we did early in the year. Because of that, coming into the spring, we got most of our kids healthy, and I think that showed in how we played. We were able to play a much more attractive style of soccer. And secondly, no matter if you have injuries or not, when you lose games, it affects your confidence. Yeah. That's just human nature. So we wanted our kids to feel good about themselves again and win games, and they did that. And so we're quietly confident coming out of the spring. We've got some really good players. We've got some great leadership. Like I said, the one sort of missing piece is who's going to score the goals. It might be by committee. Instead of having 2 kids score 10, we might have 4 kids score 5. And that's okay. We're not quite sure how it'll be, but the young players are going to be a factor. But we really need, the Rodriguez, the Lenharts, the Jones, Charmaine Morgan, Hannah Webb. I mean, geez, all those kids, Yoakum, Ali Jackson, they're all capable of scoring. We just need them to hopefully get some confidence and hit the ground running next year.
You look at the silver lining a bit last year. The fact that, they had all those injuries, you had a lot of young kids who were put in positions that they didn't think they were going to be put in. So They got experience. So now it has a lot of depth for you this year, especially with all the returners coming back from injury. So how overall do you see this group coming into the fall? Just overall, are you pretty excited about this group?
Yeah, super excited. Last year I was a little bit uncertain. We felt like we'd be good, but there were some areas of the team that we were wondering, what we'd look like. This year I don't feel that way. The only area that's a little uncertain is up top because of, we're adding 2 new pieces and we had a transfer come in. So that can take time. They're all good players, by the way. But it just takes time to blend it together. The rest of the group, when you look at our midfield, you've got kids like Kim Rodriguez can play there, Julia Lenhart, JC Jones, Cammie Huddleston, Grace Yoakum. I mean, these are all really good players. In the wide areas, you've got Charmaine Morgan, you've got Hannah Webb, and then Claire Ganser, who had a very good season. In the back, we've got Siragusa Sr., Elise Hahn Sr., Rodriguez Jr., Ali Jackson Sophomore. And then the 2 goalkeepers are a year better, a year wiser. So it really does set up to be a good team. Now, if we lose 6 starters like we did last year, I'm not sure how things will turn out again. We'll just have to see. But I wouldn't think that that's going to be the issue again this year. So if we can, if our kids come in healthy and they come in fit, ready to go, and we figure out the attack and who's going to score the goals, the sky's the limit. That's a great group of kids, and the standard that they set each day, the way they work, they're just fun to be around. The vibe around the team is very positive. We enjoy them. We think they enjoy us for the most part, but it just seems like we're in a really good place right now.
Talking about Kim Rodriguez, obviously someone that's played, I think she's full senior national team for Mexico now?
Yes.
So, I mean, someone at her age to be able to accomplish something like that, some of the experience she's had on the national stage, kind of talk about, there are some challenges to that too. She's away from the program more than maybe you'd like to see, but, she is away still improving her game, getting some experience that you really can't offer at the college level. So talk about her being on the national stage, kind of what she brings to the team in terms of experience that maybe she wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, it's Kim's growth has been quite phenomenal. When we recruited Kim, great player, super talented player, was with Mexico's U17s and played on a very good club team out of Houston. Great left foot, ability to strike the ball. The question mark for Kim was how would she develop physically, once she got in our strength conditioning program and our nutritionist and all the people that are here to help. And, man, she has bought into that side of it. She's faster, she's more agile, she's more powerful. And I think that was the one question mark that the Mexican Federation would have had too. How's that going to develop? And she's been phenomenal. And it's credit to Kim. We have great resources here at OSU, but it's up to the kid to use them, and she's very motivated to do that. So that has helped her progress, through the U19 Mexican team, the U20s, and now with the full team. Yeah, she got, I think, 2 or 3 caps. They call it when you play with your national team. They call it a cap. It's just an old tradition. They used to give you a cap, but I don't think they give them to you anymore. But she got 2 or 3 caps with Mexico at the Cypress Cup, and what an unbelievable experience to play against professionals, to play against women who do this for a living. And you got to be on top of your game. So that's invaluable, and she brings that back to our group and makes us better for sure. You talked about her being away. That's it's unfortunate, but that's just part of the deal when you've got a player who competes at that level. You're going to be without him sometimes. We dealt with it with DK. We dealt with it with AD Franch. We'll continue to deal with it. Hopefully, we continue to get players at that level that have the ability to do that. Last year Grace Neville was gone with the England team for a while, so it's a great problem to have. And I must say, we had quite a spring. It was kind of surreal. Within about a month of each other, we had Kumbaso, former player, made her debut for Switzerland. Kim made her debut with Mexico. AD got her first full cap for the US against England, and then Courtney DK got called back into Nigeria and went to Spain with them. So, we had 4 players at one time all playing with their full national teams, which, you might get that at UCLA or Duke or Carolina, but there wouldn't be too many programs in the country that could say that. So we were so proud of those players, and it was great for our program. And one of our incoming freshmen, Peyton Vincey from Wichita, she's with the Wales full national team, and she got called in at age, I think, 16. It's quite an amazing story as well. So she's the next one kind of coming through the ranks.
What does that say about the program when you can kind of flaunt it a little bit? I know the social media is very active on it, and every time there's someone called up like that, something you obviously want to push out.
Well, I think it's important for recruiting for one thing. If we go into, say, Dallas, where it's a hotbed for women's soccer, and there's so many good players, and every other school wants the same kids as we do, and a lot of these kids have aspirations of playing in the World Cup or the Olympics. We can say, hey, we've been there, done that. We've shown that we can develop players who can play at that level and help them get to where they want to be and live their dreams. And there's a pathway to do that in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which a lot of kids probably don't know. They do know there's a pathway from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or UCLA or USC, but it's kind of neat that kids who have those aspirations can come here and their dreams can come true, and it's really exciting for us. And like I said, we give them the resources and a little bit of guidance, but really it's up to the kid. And we've been very blessed. All those kids that I mentioned are just so motivated to get where they wanted to be, and now we get to watch them on TV and on streams, and it's very cool.
Speaking of recruiting, someone in the state that you were able to get was Rebecca George. The thing that kind of stood out to me from the press release that was released and your comments on it was, she just set this goal scoring record in Oklahoma, the new 6A scoring record for a single season. I think that was probably the third or fourth thing you mentioned that you liked about her game. Just the versatility of her coming into the program. What do you like about her?
Yeah, it's interesting. We, in our sport, the way recruiting's gone, and it's hopefully changing with some new legislation, but right now, the world we live in, we're recruiting 9th and 10th graders. And so obviously in state, we try to get a handle on who the best kids at that age are very early on in the process, and Rebecca was one of those kids. Coming into this recruiting cycle, as we try to plan 4 years ahead and recruit these kids, we were graduating basically Haley and Marlo at that time. So we were looking for 2 attacking players to replace them. Well, we got Peyton and Olivia committed early. And so we knew Rebecca, we knew how good she was, but you can't recruit 8 kids if you only have 2 spots. And then you kind of lose track of these kids because, you fill up your class and they commit elsewhere, and you don't really pay that much attention, to be honest. So I did know that Rebecca had committed and was going to Memphis, and because I read it on social media and I know her club coach. But then, she obviously had a change of heart, and Memphis agreed to release her, and then she contacted us and said, listen, I just want to stay close to home. She explained her reasons for doing so, and they made sense to me. And we had an opportunity open up due to some kids leaving here that we didn't have 3 years ago. And we brought her in and talked about it, and she decided this is where she wanted to be, and we were really excited. And with her club team, she plays as a center midfielder. And also on the women's team in the summer, a bunch of these kids play in the WPSL. Some of our kids play on that team, like JC and Loren played last year. So we know Rebecca a little bit from there. And where I've seen her play most recently is as a midfielder. Her ball retention, something we're stressing with our team, is excellent. She's really good at keeping the ball. She's a very good passer of the ball. She's skillful. She's technical. And obviously at the high school level, she bangs in a bunch of goals. So it'll be interesting. You know, there's a pretty big jump from Oklahoma High School to Big 12 Division I college soccer. But if she can withstand the physicality and make the necessary changes to her game, she certainly has the ability to help us with some goals, which, as I just said, we need. So it's a great pickup for us, and we're really excited.
When you are recruiting, do you see kids more playing high school, or do you go recruit them more at club games? What do you see more from them that you want to see that translates to the college game?
Mostly club games in our sport, because what you do is the club teams, for example, a club in Oklahoma City or Tulsa, they would have the majority of the best high school kids come together and play on that club team. So we get to see them with each other, and then we get to see them competing against the same groups from Dallas and Houston and Denver and Florida and all that. So you see them in that environment. It gives you a much better idea of how they can play for us. We do look at some high school games, but it's difficult to evaluate because there's such a disparity in levels. You know, you've got a Rebecca who's scoring, 40-some goals, and you've got a kid who's played soccer for 2 years. Yeah. And it's just very difficult to gauge how that would translate. But I'll tell you one thing I do know is you can't coach the ability to score. A lot of that's just natural instinct. And so whenever you see a kid scoring that many goals, you get excited because that's not something you can always coach, and some kids just have a knack for that.
And you mentioned that you need to get more scores this year, but you can't coach that ability. So how are you going to try to this summer find those 4 players to score 5 goals or the 2 to score 10? How are you going to try to evaluate that and get that out of some kids?
Yeah, when you look at the returning kids, Yoakum undoubtedly has that ability. She's a very, very good player, and we've played her a little bit deeper, and we might play her a little bit higher in the midfield to get her in front of the goal more often. That'll up her percentages. JC's the same way. JC's kind of our playmaker, but I think if we can push her a little bit higher and get her in better positions, we can help her at least be in the right position to score. Those 2 kids stand out immediately. Charmaine Morgan, I think, had 4 goals from wingback as a sophomore and then missed last year. And not only that, she set up a lot of goals for us. So, those kids can help us from those wide positions, she and Hannah Webb. It's funny, Julia Lenhart, might be our most consistent and versatile player. And we play her as a deep midfielder because she just controls the flow for us. But this spring, a couple of games we played her higher up just based on low numbers and injuries and things. And she was very, very good there too. So there's a few things we can do. We can put the kids in the right positions in practice to try to give them repetition and build their confidence. But like I said, a lot of the goal scorers like a DK, Haley Woodard, it's athleticism and it's kind of that knack to be in the right spot when that pass comes in to finish. And that is a very difficult thing to teach. What we can do is give them reps and try to put them in a system or shape that's maximizing their ability. But, once the ball's out there and it comes across the goal, you're putting the net or you don't. It's kind of like a shooter. If you can shoot, you're going to make some baskets. If you're not a very good shooter at age 18, 19, you're probably not going to be a great shooter at age 22, 23 either. And that's kind of what we deal with. We hope that they develop the necessary skills, from age 8 through 18. Because once they get to us, we can refine them a little bit, but I don't think you're going to take a 2-goal kid and make him a 20-goal kid. That's probably not going to happen.
Now, we'll get into some personal things here.
Sure.
You're a Rangers fan, right? Is that
very
true?
much so?
All right,
yeah.
I thought I saw that on Twitter. Now, is Steven Gerrard the manager?
He's
there
the
now?
manager. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you got
legend.
one of the English legends managing, and Glasgow, right?
Yes.
That's Glasgow, Scotland.
Yep.
Is it Celtic or Celtic?
Celtic.
Is that the big rival still?
Oh, yeah. So I'll give you the quick rundown. So basically, since the late 1800s, you've had Rangers and Celtic in Glasgow. The stadiums are 4 miles apart.
Right.
And I guess historically, Celtic was founded as a Catholic club to benefit the poor people, the poor Catholic communities in Scotland. And kind of as a consequence, Rangers already existed, but a lot of the non-Catholic or Protestant people in the city kind of gravitated there. And over the years, that's just built up and simmered and bubbled and boiled. And, it's a little bit sad that, people use religion as kind of a mechanism for the rivalry, but I'll tell you what, it does add to the intensity of it. And so for many, many years, it's gone back and forth. Celtic won 9 championships in a row, I think in the 60s, 70s. Rangers did it in the 90s. And then about five or 6 years ago, Rangers had some financial difficulties and went into administration, and they had to drop down to the lowest division. So Celtic won like 5 championships before Rangers came back up. So now Celtic are just about to win their 8th championship in a row, and the big thing is for them to get 9, and then 10 would set the record. And so they want that more than anything, and we want to stop them more than anything. But it's been very difficult for Rangers because financially they were basically they hit rock bottom, and they've had to build back up. So while they were down, Celtic were just taking money from the Champions League money and all that. So they're in a much healthier state to buy players and pay them. So, you know, a lot of people outside Scotland don't pay that much attention to it. But when you're in it, it's. I mean, I was brought up a Rangers fan, and when we were in the bottom divisions playing teams from towns of like 5,000 people in the 4th division in Scottish, you can't imagine it's a very good level. But I would get up at 6 a.m. and watch the live stream on the computer. It's just what you do, you know.
So, I mean, Steven Gerrard, obviously, we talked about huge name. I follow more English soccer than I do Scottish soccer. But a guy like him, what's it been like since he's been involved? I mean,
first of all,
like
he's up the profile because he can attract better players from England. So when Steven Gerrard calls, you take the phone call, period. You know, he's just that big a name. As a manager, I think he did well, but it's his first season, and I think he's learning on the fly. And it is such a big rivalry. I mean, it's, you know, both stadiums seat like 50, 60,000. They sell out every week. I mean, it's phenomenal. And so he kind of got thrust in. His first managerial job was at a kind of a sleeping giant, if you will. And he did well. They're going to finish second. They beat Celtic once, which was improvement. We hadn't beaten them in like 4 or 5 years, I think it was. So there's a lot of positives, but it all comes down to money. You know, Rangers will offer $3 million to buy a player, and a team in England will offer $10 million. Rangers will offer to pay you £10,000 a week, and a team in England will pay you £20,000 a week. So it's very difficult to get them to come to Scotland. But you know, so that's where we are.
How many Scottish teams get entry to the Champions League?
So only the champion goes to the Champions League, and then the next 3, I believe, go to the Europa League.
Okay.
And so Celtic went to the Champions League, but they went to the qualifiers. So it's the Champions League is set up for the big countries.
Right.
Spain, Italy, Germany, England, you know, they're getting all the teams in, France. And the small countries have to go through qualification. So Celtic got eliminated, so they dropped into the Europa League. And Rangers were in the Europa League as well. And it's good money, but it's not even a fraction of what the Champions League pays. So the idea is if Rangers could get back to the Champions League and bring in about £30 million, it would be crazy.
Yeah, it's just the difference between the two. I mean, you talk about the English, when you look at the table, I mean, that's what I think makes, you know, the EPL such a interesting league, is because you have the top two, you know, Liverpool, Manchester City fighting.
Big game today, by the way.
Absolutely. I was, you know, no win for Manchester United. They two big rivals could win this.
So Justin, our associate head coach, just walk by his office, you'll see Man United stuff everywhere. And so I love razzing them. They're in 6th place. Yeah. And I mean, for them, that's unacceptable, right? And so, I give him. He was ribbing me when Rangers were down the league, so now I can rib him a little bit.
So who do you think he would rather have win the? I mean, because it's a no-win situation, right? I mean, they lose and Manchester City wins.
I think he'd say Man City. Just because historically Liverpool's been the bigger rival, and just Liverpool haven't done it in so long. And the funny thing is, our volunteer assistant Michael, he's a big Liverpool fan. So at some point I will be watching that game today, the Man City Man U game today, with both of them hopefully together. Because I don't care who wins, I can just give them both grief.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, you got the two fighting for that. Obviously, 4th place is another. It makes every game so interesting. You're fighting for relegation. I mean, so like I'm a Chelsea fan, so I mean. 4th place right now is every game matters down the stretch.
Yeah, they got to stay in 4th, otherwise it's a disaster, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I just think it's kind of interesting where, you know, in a lot of American sports, if you're a bad team, you know, fan base, games don't matter.
Right.
If you're in 16th place, it's a big deal because you don't want to drop down to that 18th spot and get relegated.
Yeah, you drop down, it's costing you about £100 million. It's ridiculous. To put it in perspective, Celtic will win the Scottish League this year, and they'll get somewhere in the region of £5-6 million for winning it. The team that that finishes last in the English Premiership, I believe, gets about £50 million.
Wow!
So you just can't compete with that.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
TV contracts are just...
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Interesting. Kind of put a bow on some things that we've talked about a little bit. New stadium last year.
Yeah.
I think you're still going to get some bells and whistles that you didn't have last year implemented this year. How excited are you to finally see that come to completion?
Yeah, it's been fantastic for us to play. I mean, we haven't fully moved in and integrated yet, which hopefully is coming this summer. But just to play there, that opening game against OU when we did the dedication for the Patterson family, and I mean, I still get chills just thinking about it. It's 4,000 fans. The Orange Outlaws had the drums and flag. It's what college soccer is. What you aspire to. It's what you dream of. It's like going in Gallagher Iba when it's packed out for men's basketball and the students are going ballistic, and that's what we want. We want that for soccer, and to see that, I think it was exciting for me as a coach. Our kids were so emotional. Thank goodness we won, by the way. If we'd lost Bedlam, it would have been such a letdown on that day. But, it's a testament to, first of all, the Patterson family and Mr. Patterson and their love for our school. I can't put into words how thankful we are. Coach Holder for helping us make that vision become a reality. I don't know what Coach was thinking. He must have just been standing back going, oh, my goodness, is this really possible? This is happening here? And it was just so cool to be part of that. And it's a night I'll never forget. Moving forward, we'll be in the locker room. They're adding, they'll be sodding the east side as a training area for us, so we'll be able to keep the playing surface hopefully as nice as possible. The suites and the student section should be fully functioning this fall, so it's even going to be better than it was last year. And so hopefully all the fans that came out and had a blast last year will come back this year and really, really get to enjoy all the amenities that we have. And we hopefully will be able to put a team on the field again that can entertain them. And we're just excited. It's I think the associate head coach from Florida, when they came to play us this year, his name's Alan Kirkup. Great coach, one of the best I've been around, and has been around the college women's game forever. And when he walked in, he said, man, you guys are the envy of the college soccer world. And that kind of rang true. And I thought, man, we've got a pretty big responsibility here to make sure that we put on a great team and have a great game day experience for the fans. And that's our goal.
I mean, whenever you and Coach Hancock started this way back in the 90s, and then the evolution to Patterson Stadium, how overall have you seen the growth, not only in Stillwater of the soccer, but college soccer nationwide? How have you seen the growth in the NCAA and just all that around?
Man, it's great. I mean, speaking of Stillwater, Oklahoma, we came here in 96, 97, I believe, and we played out at Willis on McElroy, and there was no bleachers. The field tilted at about a 40-degree angle. We used to joke, like, we'll take the wind and kick downhill for a half, and it was crazy. There was just nothing there. And to see that, and then we got a field, and then we got bleachers, and we got a press box, and they added little bits and pieces. And to see that to where we are now, it's not even the same conversation. And a lot of places are investing a lot of funds into women's soccer. Our conference, especially the Big 12 facilities, are amazing. Texas Tech have a great stadium, and they get 1,500 fans a game. Texas, they share with track, so it's a little bit different, but it's beautiful. Kansas have an unbelievable soccer facility for the women's soccer team. OU's is very nice. Iowa State has a nice sort of dual complex with track, softball, and soccer. So, yeah, there's just a lot of places that are investing money. K-State are building a brand new stadium. So it's really cool to be part of that. And, I couldn't have imagined that would be the case if you go back 15, 20 years. I mean, we were changing in parking lots and, taking vans instead of buses and just crazy stuff. And now you see how good these kids have it and how well they're treated. It's been really good to see the development of the sport.
Obviously we talked about the EPL and Champions League and all that, how big men's soccer is.
Yep.
But you are right now in 2019, this is probably the best. It keeps getting better each year, women's soccer in terms of pros and then, the Olympics and all that. How overall do you see being part of this right now and to see the growth of it in the next 10 years?
It's great. I mean, having the women's league is awesome. It gives these quality college athletes the opportunity to go pro in the sport they love. They put just as much into it as football and basketball, and they don't get the recognition. And we all understand that. But for them to have the opportunity to play pro is amazing. European leagues have really done a good job. France are paying a ton of money. Spain are starting to put money into it. The Scandinavian countries are great. So England are paying a ton of money to international players now. So it's great to see the rise of women's soccer, and you're always fighting an uphill battle if you compare to the men's, and I know there's all the conversations about equal pay and equal facilities, and hopefully someday we'll get there. But it doesn't happen overnight, and I just think instead of focusing on the comparison between women's and men's soccer, just focus on making women's soccer as good as it can be, because I do think there are certainly crossover fans, but I think women's soccer has their own hardcore fans, and I think that's who you need to try to promote and try to market to. But yeah, it's been great. I don't see it slowing down. I just see so many people that love the sport, and so many young women now coming through that play club soccer, play high school, and the opportunities they have to play college and beyond. It's really great to see.
One more thing,
Yep.
because you mentioned that more kids playing club sports, that obviously always has to help your recruiting, because instead of just the limited pool you had back in 1997, you have this giant pool nationwide that you can go look and see how you've seen the growth, I guess, of the competition of girls soccer.
I mean, it's growing not just in the U.S. I mean, we see it here because we're in it, and the U.S. was always a leader because of facilities, infrastructure, funding. They've always had an advantage over Brazil or Scotland or England or Germany. So it's always been good here. I think now you're seeing more kids than ever playing. And I think the question now is that the U.S. soccer are trying to figure out is what's the best way to continue to develop these kids and make them better so that they can continue to win World Cups and Olympics. The other countries, they already have kind of, by looking at the men, they kind of have a system in place that they can mimic to some degree. And so you're seeing Japan and Australia and Sweden and Germany and France and Spain, all these countries now, the US used to crush them, 10, 15 years ago, wasn't even close. Now these countries, the US might win the World Cup, but they also might finish 8th. That was unheard of, 15 years ago. The U.S. was either going to win it or finish 2nd. And so it's been pretty cool to see worldwide just the development of the women's game. There's a lot of good players out there.
Coach, appreciate it, and best of luck this summer, recruiting, everything that goes on during the summer. I know it's never ending. You were talking about that before we started, but best of luck coming up this fall.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Jordan
it.
and Jordan will finish up the podcast right after this. Welcome back into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. We had a good conversation there with Coach Colin Carmichael. I do want to remind you, if you haven't seen the women's soccer schedule, if you want to get out there next year, you're talking about games against Tulsa, Oral Roberts, Central Arkansas, St. Louis, Omaha, Kennesaw State, SMU, and then Big 12 opponents, Kansas, K-State, OU, and Baylor. So some terrific games in Stillwater next year. Obviously, you don't get Texas in town, but you get a Bedlam in town, which you do every year. But got the 2 Kansas schools and Baylor. So, I mean, there's some good talent there. Baylor's definitely a tough team that is always pretty good in soccer. And I'm really excited to get out there this fall coming up. It's going to be a long summer waiting for soccer because I think this team has got a chance to be really, really good if they can figure out some of the things up front, which we talked about with Coach Carmichael.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he gets that figured out because, like we talked there, it's hard to teach kids that. I mean, it's a skill that it's unteachable. So luckily he's got some players, but he's got to figure out where to put them. And he's got some ideas. So we'll see what happens come August when they start the season. But I just hope that the stadium's done, and that's what he hopes. We talked about that, but I hope everything's done, all the bells and whistles, and that way you can completely think of nothing else. Like we can go actually to our locker rooms. The concession stands work. Everybody's here, so hopefully it's all done by the time the first game against Tulsa rolls around.
This is going to be stupid awesome for recruits. It's going to be such a recruiting advantage, and that is such a testament to Holder, to the Patterson family. That's such a testament to all of them that they are giving the soccer program such a big advantage when it comes to that coming up here in the future. Let's talk about tennis a little bit. Obviously, not the weekend they wanted when we got done recording. I just posted it up before they had lost to Kansas, so not the weekend they wanted. But Kansas goes on and wins the Big 12. They're going to end up hosting a regional. Now Kansas had a ton to play for. Yeah. I mean, right? Because if Kansas loses to Oklahoma State, they probably aren't hosting a regional. So it was a huge weekend for Kansas. They obviously go on and beat Texas as well. They're probably for sure a regional host. Might have knocked Texas off a super regional hosting site as well. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, RPI-wise and stuff like that. The Cowgirls will not be a super regional host, probably, most likely. But still ranked in the top 10 in a couple polls. The U.S. Tennis Association, they're number 10. And Slam Tennis, they are number 9. And then the UTSA poll, I believe. USTA is the one I mentioned. The ITA poll is 14. So different ones there that they're ranked highly in as they head towards postseason play here. When do they figure that out?
Monday. They'll Monday at 6 o'clock. Well, 5 o'clock for the men and 5:30 for the women. They'll release that, and I think it's going to be, obviously, you mentioned Super Regionals. I forgot this year they actually start that. So Super Regionals is the first time in tennis. It's going to be really cool to see. But I think that Texas probably didn't do itself any more favors than OSU because they lost both on the men's and women's side. Men's lost to Baylor, so women's lost to Kansas. That's got to be a big choke job there. So good job, Longhorns.
Not a good. It was an all-around bad weekend for the Longhorns. I mean, you look at the baseball butt whooping they took here to Oklahoma State too. So, not a good weekend to be a Longhorn fan. Never is. I mean, in my opinion, never a good weekend to be a Longhorn fan. But talking about this, I mean, obviously, I want to get into some of the honors that they got. The three seniors, they get first team academic all Big 12, Stresnikova and Blanco. That's their third time. Both are going to graduate this semester with a 4.0 GPA. I mean, they get it done on and off the court. We talked about it with Sophia Blanco on the program a couple weeks ago. But, I mean, just a true testament to what this team is. And this is going to be a dangerous team. I don't think anyone wants to see Oklahoma State in the postseason, kind of like Kansas.
Yeah, and I don't know how they did a 4.0 in college. It's impossible, I thought. So, especially with playing tennis, that's a credit to them and a credit to what they do over there at Greenwood Center. But, yeah, this is a team that's playing really well. I mean, I know that they lost to Kansas at the beginning like we talked about last week. It's hard to be a team 3 times in 1 year, especially when you're playing them on their home court. So, I mean, I don't think that's kind of showing anything to what they've been playing. They've been playing really well recently. They're going to be playing really well in the NCAAs. They're probably going to be getting Tulsa, I assume, to come here, which is always a good game in postseason play. So I hope that they'll be playing pretty well. I assume they will. They've shown no signs of slowing. It was just a hiccup, I think, against Kansas. Oh, and Marina. Marina, what did Marina get?
Yeah, so she was the all-tournament. She was in the all-tournament team, so that was kind of cool. Kansas swept the doubles team, which is kind of interesting. On the men's side, 2 Oklahoma State doubles teams were part of the team of the tournament. Kansas swept the women's doubles team of the tournament, but Marina was part of the singles team of the tournament. So that was kind of cool. One of them at least got honored. Yeah,
and she's a player like we talked about. She was the one that was that last match against OU. She's a fighter. She's been here 2 years, and she just is a grinder in those matches. So she'll be definitely big for them. She's been playing that 4-5 spot for them. So she'll be pretty good. I'm excited for what comes next week. Hopefully we'll see who they play on Monday, and hopefully it's a good draw. It usually has been in recent years.
No doubt about it. Speaking of postseason play, let's move on to golf here. Liana Bailey and Hanswan Yu, they were selected for postseason play. Obviously not what they – like I said it on the Sports Update today. It's a mixed bag, right, because you want to be there as a team. You expect to be there as a team, but, you don't get there. But still, for the 27 years that the regional format has been a thing, Oklahoma State's been represented at the regional with at least one golfer. So that's incredible. That's an incredible streak. Same thing with medalist honors at the Big 12s. That's an incredible 20-plus year streak for that as well. So, it's not what you want, but you still have to look at it and be somewhat proud of what you've been able to accomplish here with this golf program. And by the way, these are 2 freshmen that are going to have a chance to go compete, maybe get a chance to compete at the national championships. If they are able to qualify from the regionals, the way the regionals works, to my understanding from this release, is the teams that qualify for the national tournament or the national finals, nationals, their individuals are taken out of it, and then it's the top 3 individuals that qualify for nationals. So if Bailey or if one of them qualifies, that'll be the 9th individual unattached to the team that will qualify for Oklahoma State. If both of them go, that'll be 9 and 10. So they have some opportunity to do some things, and obviously not a lot getting an opportunity to go solo because Oklahoma State has sent their team so often on the women's side. So it's just kind of a cool opportunity for a couple of freshmen that have golfed really, really well down the stretch here because, again, starting off this season, we really didn't see this from either Bailey or Han Swan Yu, and now you're starting to get a little traction, and these two look like they're going to be studs going on into the future.
Yeah, it was a close call last year with Emma Rose. She was very, very close to not making it, but Cowgirls obviously missed the cut over there in California in the regional, but she was able to make it, play here at Carson. That was a huge deal because obviously being at Carson, you want to be represented by one of your golfers, so that was big. And I think it'd be cool that you have two going down to Norman, and then that the fact that Nationals are in Fayetteville, so you don't have to go very far. It's being a good fan following, I hope. Because men's, we'll see where they go for their regional. It might be the same as women's. It might be in Norman. So that'd be big for men's too. But I'm glad that this happened because we talked about there is. You said mixed bag yesterday. It's been a mixed bag of a season, but there is hope in the future, especially with these two freshmen qualifying for NCAA regionals.
Let me pull up the roster here really quickly for the Cowgirl team because I think this is worth noting because a lot of people are going to be down on this team after this season, after last season, disappointment, not making nationals at their home course. Sophomore, freshman, senior, junior, freshman, sophomore, freshman. One senior, one junior, and you're bringing in Maya Stark, who's a top-rated recruit, Isabella Fierro, she's a top-rated recruit, and you got, I believe, one or two other recruits coming in that are pretty highly rated as well. So you have some top recruits coming in. You have a couple that have already qualified here. Forsland was playing some of her best. She's the junior, Michelle Forsland from Norway. She's been, she's not Victor Hovland. She's not the Victor Hovland from Norway, but she down the stretch, she was the top finisher at the Big 12. So, she didn't put together a season worthy of qualifying for a regional, but down the stretch, you could argue that she was one of, if not the best golfer on this team. So she was good down the stretch. Emma Whitaker is someone that was on the Big 12 team. The tournament team featured no seniors. Chimin Chen was not on that your starting lineup in the Big 12s. So you went Liana Bailey, freshman. Sarah Camarena from Mexico, freshman. Forsland, Norway, junior, pardon me. Emma Whitaker, sophomore from Kansas, and Han Swan Yu, a freshman. So you went three freshmen, a sophomore, and a junior. And you finished better than you thought you were going to at Big 12s. Like we talked about, we're kind of beating the dead horse here on the recruits that are coming in. Probably hyping them up too much. They're probably telling us to shut up. But, no, I think this is a team headed in the right direction. We've kind of said that a couple times. So, all right, we saved it for last. Set ourselves up for disappointment here. We'll just say something quickly because nothing's been confirmed by anyone. But Jaden Hobbs, no longer on the online roster. I feel like we should just say something about it. She's no longer on the online roster. According to Raul _000 on Twitter.
better handle.
yeah, something a little more conducive. And he also needs to make his tweets not protected. But that's neither here nor there. I guess it forces people to follow you. So, but he reported that Jaden Hobbs had entered the transfer portal. When it was reported that Braxton Miller was on transfer portal, we saw her name scrubbed from the online roster. Now we get Jaden Hobbs scrubbed from the online roster. We saw pictures posted this weekend from the Cowgirl basketball Twitter account. She was not in any of them. I think, you got to read between the lines at some point. It's not a verbal, it's no verbal yes for sure. She's, no verbal confirmation, I guess. But it seems like you have to read between the lines here.
Yeah. So, I was taken aback on Saturday. Hopefully we'll see, sometime why she left. Maybe she'll post something like Braxton did. I don't know, but or where she ends up, obviously. But yeah, it was a bit strange because we talked to her on the podcast back in February, and this was our dream school, so we'll see why she left. But yeah, to me, somebody's big replaces. She was automatic from three. We talked about how she's gonna be a good returner for them, and so now you got to replace her as well as Braxton Miller.
When Braxton left, it was like, well, you still have Vivian Gray, you still have Jaden Hobbs. A lot of this more experience than you're comfortable losing. I understand you feel good about the recruiting class you're bringing in, all of that good stuff, and you should be. I think they've done a pretty good job recruiting here. they were able to get Vivian Gray. So, they were able to get Braxton Miller. They were able to get Jaden Hobbs. Like, the talent that you're losing, you have to be happy that because, it seems like they're good at recruiting them. Yeah. But you're losing a ton of experience. And every single year, it's just you get tired of hearing, well, they're young again, they're young again, they're young again. At some point, you hope this team collectively gets old together. It's just kind of like you just hope that they collectively get some experience and then stick around to use that experience for this team, not get the experience and bolt off to the Big Ten. So, and we'll say that. I don't know if you haven't heard, Braxton Miller's going to Ohio State. So, like I said, she's an enemy now. She's a Big Ten enemy. So, no, best of luck to her. Not sure why she left still, but she is gone, and so is apparently Jaden Hobbs. So, just kind of frustrating.
Yeah. I remember at the beginning of the year, the preview of the season, Cowgirls looked to rely on experienced duo of Miller and Hobbs, and now they're both gone. So that's kind of funny looking back on now. But, it's the transfer portal and how we live in now, so 2019.
The curse of the commentator, Jordan Bishop.
Yeah.
That'll do it for us. Episode 19 is in the books. Thanks to Colin Carmichael for joining us. That was, again, a great conversation. I love talking soccer, so hopefully we get to talk to maybe Kim Rodriguez. Maybe we'll see if we can't get Haley Woodard had graduated recently. Maybe we can get her on. Who knows? We'll work it and see. I do love talking soccer, so we'll see about that. But a good conversation with him. Thanks to him for joining us. Bishop, appreciate it as always. Good podcast. Episode 19 in the books. Cowgirl Coverage Podcast, Turtle Play Sports Podcast Network.